Good morning, everyone. It's 6 a.m. now, GMT, 8 o'clock here in Finland. The sun is shining, and we're heading towards our equinox very shortly. The ingress of the sun into the sign Aries. And we'll be having a presentation for that equinox coming up, I think, even tomorrow. Right now, let's see where we are. Right, and hi, everybody, and hi, Lynette, and hi from far away and nearby. Last night on the idea of, well, non-spatiality, I was working with identify as being non-temporality and non-spatiality. If there is no division, if there is no separation, there can be no space, there can be no time. Admittedly, those are very arcane philosophical thoughts, and it doesn't stop us from having to deal with the immediate crises at our disposal, or crises that seem to be obstructing the way of the good, the beautiful, and the true. So we'll keep living in two worlds, which is only one, and handling the Mahamaya, which is unreal and yet actual. Our concentration now is going to be quite a bit on this raw love of power, which evaluates or estimates the value of power beyond the welfare of others. It's happening all the time, of course. It's the sad story of human history. But we have examples of it right now where we have a disenfranchisement occurring in subtle ways simply to preserve the materialistic prerogatives of the few against the welfare of the many. Now that just cannot abide, and we'll do our little bit to work in a different direction, one that will negate that very selfish, desire-ridden approach. I want to kind of begin here with, I'll be using this again quite a bit, the second stanza of the Great Invocation. And, keep in mind that people who cannot vote, whose will cannot be expressed, people who are overcome by others and deprived of their natural rights as a human being, they need liberation. And that's why we here are invoking the Lords of Liberation, who intervened powerfully 80 years ago in the Second World War in a way, that where humanity's very survival was at stake, given the demand for atomic weaponry at the time. Though this is a different issue. We have all the weaponry we could possibly use and more. And it's only getting more and more sophisticated, while human morality, which is a caring for the others in one's group, is not keeping up. So we'll do what we can to try to help guarantee, it's coming, of course, but to help guarantee the rights of all people, because they are all part of the divine will. Everybody has a little fragment of the divine will, and when their will is curtailed, obstructed, negated, then the divine will does not come through as the great and higher powers would see it come through in order for the plan and purpose to be executed. So let's at least begin here, and then we'll go into our reading, and then we'll go into our meditation, which will deal with that subject. For some reason, my computer is seems to be flashing. I just hope I can stay on here. I don't know why that is occurring, and let's just see if I don't think there's much I can do about it right now. So it'll be a bit of the on and off. Let the lords of liberation issue forth. Let them bring succor to the sons of men. Let the rider from the secret place come forth, and coming save. Come forth, O mighty one. Let the souls of men awaken to the light, and may they stand with massed intent. Let the fiat of the Lord go forth. The end of woe has come. Come forth, O mighty one. The hour of service of the saving force has now arrived. Let it be spread abroad, O mighty one. Let light and love and power and death fulfill the purpose of the coming one. The will to save is here. The love to carry forth the work is widely spread abroad. The active aid of all who know the truth is also here. Come forth, O mighty one, and blend these three. Construct a great defending wall. The rule of evil now must end. Oh. And friends, we will continue this emphasis on human rights, which really are supposed to be built into our systems of government in this modern age, but so often are negated by the oligarchies, the plutocracies, the rich and selfish. Will continue to work because that cannot abide. I'd like to welcome you. I know it's a very early morning for some in the United States, but I do see out towards Arizona and uh, Oregon, and I see people from the United States where the hour may be still reasonable. So Tuya is here with me, and welcoming Martha and Anna and Annette and Catherine, Cindy and Karen, Leslie and Lynette and Mariana and Natni and Risto and Shriyantra, Stacia, another U.S. Attendee. I know what it's like when the hour gets late. Tiu and Vera, Vicky and Zenaidi. So welcome everybody, and thank you for attending. I'm very, that flashing screen has got me a bit captivated. I'm not sure why it's flashing, but anyway, try to ignore it. Our reading today our reading is dealing with continuing work on illusion and the technique of the presence and the dispelling of illusion. DK pretty well, he says glamour is a general term, and under it, he lists the usual Maya, glamour, and illusion. And we all know that Maya is a general term and illusion is a general term. Although in this book, DK has made these things somewhat specific to the three planes. So we, I think, went as far as this was the 12th of March, and we were on program. We're now beginning 177, and we're continuing with the work of illusion. Wonderful little book, and when he was instructing his groups, various books came out of it. The Glamour book was one. The book on telepathy was another one. And look at that, in general, that extensive book on esoteric healing. That was one of the biggest, and maybe for everyone to consider. And then, of course, there was education in the New Age. For the fourth group, there was no political treatise. For the fifth group, that's pretty well, and it never got organized, really. Only 3 people joined out of an intended 9. But when it comes to the New World religion, we do have the great reappearance of the Christ book. And when it comes to the scientific group, it was never organized, really. And we might say that his scientific comments are scattered throughout his books. When it comes to psychology, 2 wonderful books are there, plus the astrology book. So the 2 esoteric psychology books and the astrology book, it's a huge outpouring. When it comes to economics, again, the references are scattered, no book or treatise specifically, but when it comes to the final book, or final group, which we could call the creative workers, then the book, A Treatise on White Magic, fills in what they have to know and can know at this time, which is really not much. The true magical formulas are not yet given, and wisely so. But the academic background is given, and I've said before, and he has said that when the time comes for the magical formulas to be truly imparted, we will be ahead because of the work that has been done up to this time. It's if we could but realize it, the outpouring given is astonishing, and we have to reciprocate by organizing our assimilative powers. We can't just let it sit there. It's meant for us, and it's meant for great and concentrated application so that we can benefit and help benefit others. Now we're talking about illusion and misinterpretation of ideas. And what we have here is a statement from page 186. So great has been the illusion that in the West today, men talk of the, quote, temporal power of the Catholic Church. Well, that's not surprising, because time and space, that particular illusion is very much ruled by the third ray, or there's a susceptibility for people strongly on the third ray personality, or even on the third ray soul, which the personality appropriates. There's a tendency to deal with temporality and spatiality. Why is this? The rays of the Catholic Church are, he tells us. Could you name them? The first ray soul, power. The third ray personality, financial manipulation. The sixth ray mind, rigidity of thought, not like the Buddha's sixth ray mind. The sixth ray astral body, devotion. And the seventh ray physical body, ritualism. Nothing wrong there. It's just a question of the goals. Are they temporal goals? So many of the popes and prelates and bishops and all that over the years have been very worldly people. And every once in a while, you get someone like John the 23rd and maybe the present Pope Francis and so forth, who come along and really seem to care for people. They really care for their flock. But the shocking thing is how unusual it is, and how many other kinds of materialistic values and power values are preserved while, metaphorically, the people go hungry. The Protestant churches, we're in a fifth ray age. It's the age of cleavage. Excuse me. Are split up into warring factions. Still is the case. If you're a Baptist, is it partial immersion, or do you have to be underwater? Little things like that, and people will divide up along hundreds of different particularities, defending their little inconsequential particular interpretation, while the general principles of love one another, the 11th commandment from the Christ, are ignored or is ignored. The Christian Science Church is known for its ability to amass money and to teach its adherents to do so, and to achieve temporary good health. I mean, DK, all of our health is temporary. Eventually the vitality, it comes and it goes, and the wheel turns. This is his assessment, from 80 years ago. The Greek Orthodox Church was corrupt throughout. Selling out for lesser values. And only the simple faith of the uncultured and the poor has preserved any semblance of the truth of its original simple form. It has, these Orthodox churches have become, if we use the kind of interesting definition of the word, Byzantine, which means incredibly complexly deviating from simplicity, with much hidden, much secret, and yet much stored. As Tuya has emphasized, their knowledge of angels is tremendous. Many, many values exist in Protestantism, in the Catholic Church, in the Orthodox churches, many fine values, but they're covered over by this deviation towards the non-essential and the temporal and the worldly. There was that movie once, was it with Anthony Quinn? I think it was called Shoes of the Fisherman. And maybe it was a kind of a portrayal of the life of John the 23rd, a simple man, but he made a big difference because of the heart, Anyway, they have no ability for high-sounding theological discussions. That's the uncultured, simple, poor people. But they do believe that God is love, and that's just simply that, says DK. You can understand the frustration of the masters as they look at what the complex, concrete human mind has done to the simple truths as taught by the Christ. It's frustrating, I'm sure, that there is a way which leads to peace and light, and that if they deny their own material desires, they are pleasing God. Well, back in the old days in Atlantis, the lords of darkness came in and infected humanity with the desire for totally unnecessary luxury, which really inhibited the way to the truth. They knew what they were doing, and people fell for it. And we're still under the cloak of this mantle of this materialism. We can't seem to disengage ourselves, but things are being taken away. Our toys are being taken away, and before long, we're going to know what it takes really to live the spiritually productive life, even I might say the happier life. Excuse me. So DK is saying, here I am, I know, widely generalizing, brother of mine, for I do know also that there are wise and good Christians and churchmen within the theological systems. And, somewhere he tells us that some of the high prelates of the church I guess the Catholic Church in this case, or the Episcopal, actually are knowing who is the Master Jesus and meeting with him as part of some kind of inner group or groups. So, the same kind of relationship that some have with Master DK, they know who he is, they know what he wants, they try to serve. So some of these high prelates have that kind of relationship with the now Master Jesus, who is the head of the church, not necessarily of Christianity per se, but the head of the church. And I don't see why that should have changed over the years. It is an important relationship. So even these highly placed churchmen and Christians, but they don't spend their time, says DK, in theological discussions, but in loving their fellow men. Pause on that one, We have our own type of esoteric orthodoxies, and we could and do spend time in what others could judge as esoteric theological discussions, instead of perhaps loving our fellow men. What the Christ said to his flock, he said to us too: love one another. Seems so simple, and but look at the world right now. Are our governments based on that principle? Our education based on competition? Even our healing is materialistic. We don't think about healing the whole man. Maybe some psychologists do. Education to get ahead of the other guy. Politics to retain power. Religion to be exclusive and repudiate other religions. Science for technological power advantage. Psychology to manipulate others. Economics to steal from others their rightful portion. And basically, sorry, precipitating a world which is against this principle of love one another. Anyway, these churchmen, these churchwomen, a lot more now, these Christians, and let's not just limit it to Christianity, they love their fellow men, and this they do because they love Christ and all for which he stands. Let's put ourselves to the test. We can have loads of theoretical knowledge about all kinds of fascinating things. But is the heart activated? And when we meet others and work with others, is the primary idea of I love you and wish for your elevation and your welfare, and that your true needs be met, not necessarily your desires, is that foremost when we are meeting and working with others? Or are we reacting to others on the basis of superficialities? That's the question. So these people, these true disciples of the Christ, disciples of Master Jesus, they are not interested in building great churches of stone. When the war was over, let's restore everything the way it was. DK points that out. They are not interested in building great churches of stone and marble and in gathering together the money needed for their support. They are interested to gather out those who form the true church upon the inner spiritual plane and helping them to walk in the light. Again, I'm thinking of Master M in the Agni Yoga books. He says, you doves, look at you. You have forced many to feed you. You lion, you killed the messenger who was on his way to bring good tidings. You rats, you have chewed many a book without benefiting from any of them. Well, obviously, Moria wants to get the point across. The lions are the first-rate types, the doves are the second-rate types, and the rats are the third-rate types. And they have abuses associated with them, with their ray and with their way of working in the world. So it's not about pride and egotism and look at this church that I'm the prelate of, and I feel really high egotistically because of that. Oh, by the way, give enough money to keep the church in repair and so forth. They're interested in helping people walk in the light. That's the key. The illusion of power, the illusion of superiority taints them not. Are we tainted by that? Or do we have the adjusted sense of right proportion, that how he defines humility, and do we love? I'm sure we could all do better. All of us, I'm sure of it. Until, one day we can, emulating the Christ, we can enter into the mind as it is in Christ. And that's not just a Christian thing, He is the world teacher for all these many approaches to divinity. They haven't realized it because they don't know the structure of hierarchy, but part of overcoming glamour and illusion will be to convincingly portray the nature of hierarchy. So this is being written, at the time in the 30s, let's say, and the world crisis is brewing, and during the war, this huge world crisis has settled down upon humanity. After the world crisis is over, churchmen everywhere will not rest until they can discover how to penetrate through the illusion of doctrine and dogma, which engulfs them, and find their way back to Christ and his simple message, which has in it the power to save the world if recognized and practiced. Well, DK has said, look, only love can save humanity. Now, that's a pretty serious statement, as if humanity is in danger. And when I look at how close we are to delivering lethal atomic blasts in just a matter of minutes to each other, like DK says, if the world nations live in an armed camp, there will be an explosion. So, hierarchy is trying desperately to avoid that explosion in the ways which are allowed to it. Obviously, they can't force humanity to do anything, because the problem would just reappear later. And ere this, destruction of civilizations have occurred, and the need to start again has occurred. I wonder, there were, let's call it, okay, let's say there were cavemen. We seem to think that, we go back far enough, we're going to find ourselves living in caves and warding off animals and wearing skins and painting on the walls and, at a low level of human development. But do we realize, as we're told in the Secret Doctrine, that high civilizations preceded the appearance of the cavemen? But those civilizations were destroyed, and human beings fell into this primitive and uncultured state again. It's not just a question of continuity from the very beginning, whereby we are low and gradually we get higher and higher and higher. There have been these oscillations, this kind of sine wave, this rising sine wave, where great heights are achieved only to be destroyed and then achieved again, and so forth. So, the period post-atomic war, we could call it kind of an apocalyptic vision, is not a pretty one. And there have been films and novels about all this, about humanity losing its civilization, even though it was once high, though flawed in its height, i.e., without love. Love, really wanting the welfare of others. I'm not talking about the welfare state and all that, there's a debatable thing, and people have to learn to stand on their own 2 feet and all that. It's all true. But there is the danger that, again, we may lose the heights attained, just as happened in the Atlantean period, which most people think was just fanciful. But we're blessed by having the ageless wisdom given to us, a reasonable, rational, historically descriptive accounting for humanity and its appearance upon this planet and its gradual development, filled with vicissitudes, ups and downs, ups and downs. But now, facing destruction as we do by our own ignorance, you'd think we'd learn already, and hopefully there has been a learning. A little more. Maybe a little more here. Not all this, no, but a little more. So, much of the true revelation since the time of Christ has come to the world along the line of science. The great fifth ray and its cycles, the most recent of which began in 1775 and was so powerful that it had to be pretty well suspended in terms of its total potential between 1950 and the year 2000. So you know how it is, religion has fought science. Religion has fought magic. Religion has fought love. It has accepted art. It has accepted theological reasoning. It certainly has accepted power. But spirituality is not churchianity, and that DK makes very, very clear. So science has been responsible, especially since the days of Francis Bacon, for lifting us out of our ignorance. Again, as we strive towards the heights which scientifically appeared in Atlantis. You say those things and people think you're crazy, but okay, we accept the esoteric worldview, at least as a working hypothesis. The presentation, for instance, of material substance, scientifically proven as essentially only a form of energy, was as great a revelation as any given by the Christ or the Buddha. Well, you know, the religious people of the world, they're going to say, well, the Christ and the Buddha gave the great revelations, and science did something. Okay. But DK says, as great, although very much along the fifth ray line, and to an extent along the third ray line, the divine mind, and the particularities of mastering energy. The master and the mastered are but one. So think of it. This is how he sees it. As great a revelation along a different ray line as any given by the Christ or Buddha. You're not going to make friends in religious circles by saying that. It completely revolutionized men's thinking, and was, little as you may think of it, a major blow struck against the great illusion. The illusion of what? The illusion of materiality, like the solid world is real. No, it's a form of energy. And you know, the Master DK had a peculiar reaction to the using of the atomic bomb. Basically, you know, he knows the karma involved and we don't. But he said it destroyed, it blasted away a significant part of the world illusion. As horrific as it was, we don't see the way the masters see, but they see certain things and they know what it is to clear the way for a better way. It's Shambhala at work. So it related energy to force, form to life, and man to God, and held the secret of transformation, transmutation, and transfiguration. Usually the improvement of matter, transmutation, the improvement of the forms, especially the Kama-monastic forms, transformation and transfiguration, the glorification of the personality through the radiation of the soul. So this understanding of atomic energy is the major thing. And we still don't completely understand it, because what DK seems to be hinting at is that there's a way to use it in a way that is not so dangerous to man. It doesn't deal with radioactive waste and all of that kind of thing. There is a way to revolutionize the elevation of humanity and give humanity the leisure it needs to cultivate its true interior life based upon the right use of atomic energy. The revelations of science, when basic and fundamental, are as divine as those of religion. But, and here's the problem, both have been prostituted to meet human demand, not human need, human demand, desire. They've been prostituted to meet lower desire, because that's where we're centered. The era is close at hand. It's in the Aquarian age, a fifth ray age, when science will bend every effort to heal. Humanity soars and build a better and happier world. Now that's an encouraging thought. And it was written some time ago. And certainly the possibility exists. The revelations of science, though focused often through one man or woman, you know, Einstein, Marie Curie, and you know, the people that are apparently responsible for great discoveries, of course, really there's a group process behind it, are more specifically the result of group endeavor and of trained group activity than are the revelations of religion, so-called. And this is what I'll get into next time. Page 188 is where we are. And, you know, DK has said basically the scientific workers are closer to the center of life and reality than are the religious workers. That's a pretty shocking thing. And it's largely because the scientists have really learned to work in groups. Now there's competition between them, of course, and maybe more so now. Look at how people are competing to, well, sometimes competition can be a good thing, I guess, you know, it kind of hastens the process, but my vaccine's better than your vaccine, you know. But splitting is the way of many religious approaches, and group sharing of information has in many cases been the way of science. So we'll take that up next time. I'm going to bring this down here. Of course, the trouble is I'm never sure about when next time is. I should always look ahead of time and see when next time is. Anyway, this was going to be the end of reading 114 and basically 186 to 188. And it's been a morning program. And it's morning program 177. And we'll start with 178. And by the way, this has been on, let's just say 19th of March, 21. And I'm sorry, I don't have backup right now, I think, unless I do have it. And I'm not in a position to go searching for when the next one is. Somewhere here.
Michael, I tried to look that, but I on my mobile, it takes for a while. But I
Okay,
will.
if you can find it, that'd be great, dear.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. I should always check, you know. And it will be a, so this has been, you know, a 6 a.m. program. And probably the next one will be, I guess, 5 p.m. because we're almost to the point where daylight saving time is coming in. And I just don't know. If you find it, that's great. I don't want to waste any time by go looking for it. We'll be reading 115. But you've got to admit, you know, that basically he's given those people in the glamour group, you know, the observers of reality, and hence all of us, he's given us some wonderful material to contemplate about the human condition and human development and the roots of illusion, glamour, and Maya, so we can eradicate that, help to do so through the various techniques. You know, I know there's a way to do this, and I am tempted to try to investigate it, but I'll leave it to Tuija. Maybe she can find it, or someone.
Yeah, sorry, I have to go to my computer for just a moment.
Okay, well, you can come in with it when you know. Okay. All right. But let's, you know, the main thing here is let's not fall into that illusion backed by emotional glamour where we think the only way to be spiritual is to follow the teachings of some church. Basically, he says that that is a tremendous victory for the lodge of materialism that we would think such thoughts. And, you know,
Michael,
gradually, yeah, dear. Go ahead.
sorry.
Yeah,
It's
go ahead.
the 5th of April at 5 p.m. GMT, because then it is already the, how do you call this, summer saving time or?
Yeah.
Summer.
Okay.
Yeah, so 5 p.m.
Yeah, 5 p.m.,
on
5th of April. Fantastic.
Sorry, 9th of April. 9th of April, 5 p.m.
Great. Okay, thank you. Well, you know, friends, we're doing a lot of different programs, but frankly, you can put them all together. It's all one big program, and for Master DK, it's all one big book. And we have to learn how to navigate from one thing to another so that light will break forth. Now it's your turn. If you have thoughts that you want to express or talk about, this would be the moment to do it. So if there's anybody, you know, you either put it in the chat box or you raise your hand and you want to talk. And I don't know if you can help me with this, or, well, you don't really need to. I think I can manage it. Anyway, are there any things you would like to say about what we've covered here today, about Revelation and about theology and about simplicity and about simple love of the unsophisticated people who have kept the original principles somehow? You know, about who really is keeping the original revelation going. We can talk about that, or we can talk about, as I often say, anything in occultism, spiritual occultism, that you want to bring up. So if there's anybody that wants to, before we start our meditation.
Michael.
Yeah.
I was just thinking still about the illusion and how much it is related to the wrong self-perception. That I think it is very important every now and then just to reflect within oneself, what is actually my self-image? How do I think consciously how I am and what kind of person I am and what kind of spiritual entity am I, and then trying to dig deeper. What about this self-image about myself within, which is an unconscious level? And I think that is one of the big problems, because if we would have more realistic understanding about ourselves, we would not be so violent towards others who are emphasizing different ways their things.
It's crucial what you're bringing up. Crucial. Self-image, or, you know, what I sometimes call mistaken identity. You know what mistaken identity is. You think one person is somebody, but it's not that person. You're looking for somebody, and then you mistake somebody else for that person. Well, when we look at ourselves, we think we're one thing and we're really another, and that causes us all kinds of illusions in our interpretation of life and each other, and all kinds of glamours. So I would call it the illusion of mistaken identity. What we really are is lying at the root of so many of the mistakes that we make relative to each other, how we behave towards each other. It's really an important point that you're making there.
Yeah, I think it goes exactly this way, that if we would have a more realistic image, we would take responsibility there where we should take the responsibility, and protect the rights there where we should protect, because it's very often so that we protect the rights of the personality, but not the rights of the inner person,
exactly.
inner being.
Exactly.
And then,
so.
and in religious circles, I think that because we do not have this strong spiritual sense about ourselves, our inner spiritual being, that's why we are so weak when we have any different religious habits and forms, because we have to start to fight and try to take these people within our circle. But if one is strong within, it does not matter what kind of outer form people are expressing in their spiritual life, because you are strong within yourself. But when one is not, one has to try to make everybody other under my religion.
Exactly. This is exactly the point, and that's why we have to teach. You know, the new group of world servers does have a teaching function. It's the major ray, it's the indigo ray. It's informing people all over the world about what is real and what is not. We had an education is the, well, you know, just like you tell that story about the president of Finland being questioned by an interviewer from one of the Arab countries. And she emphasized education all the time. What makes you so rich? He was saying, what makes you so advanced? And didn't she say education? And then there's education, and then there's education.
He said that was going on many questions like that. And then he wanted to somehow pinpoint, because you know that there is the attitude towards women, and our president at that time was a woman. And then he asks that, so tell us, what is the secret of Finland, that how you became from the very poor country in one of the richest countries in the world, or the top of the world. I don't remember how he was saying, but anyway, within the 10 advanced countries in the world. And she said, so tell me 3 things. Yes, that is how he said. And then she says, education. Second, education. Third, education, and also for girls.
Which, of course, was a very important point for some of these countries that suppress any attempt for women to be educated. Yeah, okay, well, that's it. And we have a duty, an obligation to spread the good news in an assimilable manner to the people who are ready to hear it. And DK says, well, you aspirants, you disciples, work with the intelligentsia, work with the people who can absorb what you're saying, and then who will take it further via the third ray method of service, over the radio, through the voice, through propagating the ideas, and you will have done your job. So everybody works with somebody that they can serve. And the aspirants and disciples are supposed to work principally with the intelligentsia, who can then take it further. So let's be aware of the great propagation efforts, the great propaganda efforts. Usually the word propaganda means, you know, something negative that's lying and all that, but we're talking about the propagation of wholesome ideas, which can make a really big difference in how humanity conducts itself. Okay, now what do we got here? And this is, Leslie is saying that some of us may have read The Mystery of Self-Image. That's great. I didn't know that book existed, Leslie, by Torkham. A short book of perhaps 150 pages, The Mystery of Self-Image. Well, he's right out, you know, that's the big subject. And you stop, everybody stop to think. When you think of you, of what are you thinking? I this, I that, you know. Who is that I? What is that I? What was that I in the last universe? If you accept the great breath, do you think it has anything to do with the I that you at present think you are? Not really. So I've tried to break this down into an almost shocking self-assessment, you know, and when I say, hey, everybody, you're the transcendental deity, you are absolute infinitude. What? Where am I? No, I'm sorry. You are the transcendental deity. You are the supra-universal deity. You are the intra-universal deity. You know, these big things. And let's even get closer to home, but farther away from what we usually say. What does Hermes say? What does Buddha say? What does Christ say? And mean it. I am the light of the world. That doesn't mean I'm the form. I'm the personality. It doesn't mean any of those things. It means I am the light of the world. Now that's part of the mystery of self-image. And I am the love of the world, and on it goes. Until the Vedantists and the Brahmins and the great Vedic sages just reviving the wisdom of Shambhala, naught is but me. I am being itself. But, you know, we can talk it. Is there that ripple or vibration in the heart that reveals it as true? Torquem Sardarian did a lot of good, really explaining things so people could understand. And, you know, his works have to be kept in circulation. And I know that his daughter and others are, you know, attempting to do that. As always, you know, when there is the teacher, there are those that follow. And maybe sometimes they can embody very completely what the teacher taught, and sometimes they can't. It's just a fact. But at least certain streams can be kept in circulation, and the original beneficence can still abide. Oh, and by the way, I'm really sorry, Vera, you've been having your hand up for quite a while here. So would you kindly
Okay. Yes. Yeah. It was very interesting talk today, sobering reminder of our past humankind history. And what was interesting, and you answered some of my questions, I always was thinking, how come that there were those magnificent civilization in the distant past, and then in our known history of humankind, we have the cavemen, the Neanderthals, and then I was wondering, well, because every civilization is a creation of over hundreds of years by thousands of people, and it's a group, the whole group society's effort. And in the past, it was like the workers, the lower people, they were either enslaved or exploited. We don't want that. Now we have to work the education, the educated people, government, and the workers together. I was listening to one of those recorded talks you gave, don't know which one, but you were referring to the recent events of the invasion of the Capitol by the mob. And I felt like, I wouldn't lay the blame with those people who are, as we all know, not quite thinking straight. But I would blame those who are actually educated, who should know better. And they are the ones who actually are created this whole scenarios. And my question is actually, how can we achieve some real improvement if I believe that there are people everywhere in every part of the world who will not give up their power willingly. How can we achieve that change without destroying ourselves again?
Yes, yes. Well, part of it, part of it is to empower the many more people who do not yet have the power, but they have the right kind of heart, and they sort of surround the selfish demagogues and no longer and make their message less and less appealing. So, to empower the many through education, which of course,
Yeah.
many of the demagogues don't want at all. I mean, and we've had a peculiar reaction from some churches where they don't want to educate the people because, they will lose their power. So how do we do that? But now one other thing comes to our aid. What if, Vera, the 6th ray cycle were not going out? What if the Piscean energy were remaining in perpetuity, on and on and on?
Oh,
Then an imbalance would be created. But it takes out of incarnation many of those souls who are responsive to reactionary thoughts because they are not yet, as you say, they're not quite there thinking straight, and substitutes for them a different group, which has certain advantages and will no longer fall for the demagoguery. So the ray cycles themselves are sometimes, incoming ray cycles are curative compared to the abuses of the ray cycles that are going out and having their recrudescence. So let's just say there's an overlap now between the 6th and the 7th ray. And if you read what DK said,
yeah.
Well, the 7th ray is looking pretty favorable in terms of overcoming these abuses into which the 6th ray types and the Piscean types have fallen. So the cycles are well planned, and they are also helping us achieve a better balance.
Yes.
But meanwhile, while it's happening, you have to hold on to your horses. You have to be steady. That's the thing. And we still do have 100 years of it. It's going to be waning. It's going to be waning. This authoritarianism, this unthinking belief, this susceptibility to glamour, it's going to be waning, but it's not waned yet. So, those of us and those who follow us and the reincarnated aspects of ourselves, we have to hold steady while this is happening. And it'll happen at the end of every age. The crisis of abuse, when the lower parts of the energy, or at least the lower response, is very much with us, and will be in the future someday, breathing a sigh of relief that at last we can enter the age of Capricorn instead of the age of Aquarius. And on it will go in that way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vera. Meanwhile, we educate everyone we can, and not in crude ways, but maybe best by example, huh? Set an example. The fourth item in those 4 things we have to do in white magic. Okay, and let's see here, Anna, it says we have to reprogram the subconscious mind by the esoteric psychology of intentionally raising our vibration beliefs and dedication. Well, you know, we have a lot of work to do on ourselves. And DK talks about this in other terms, but he just basically says, please develop a system of good spiritual habits and substitute those good spiritual habits for the bad habits, which are myopically keeping you in chaos and disorder and ineffectiveness. So there's we can call that reprogramming. And let's just say first we have to do it consciously. And we all know, you know, I use my example of the gear shift. When I'm first learning how to drive a car, every time I shift gears, I'm paying attention because I don't want to grind the gears and ruin the car. But later, it becomes habitual. The subconscious takes it over. And I'm holding a conversation and about this, that, and the other, and shifting gears just fine because my conscious mind doesn't have to be involved. So first of all, we do something very deliberately. Every time a thought comes up which is contrary to yoga, we consciously substitute a thought contrary to the contrary thought. Well, after a while, after we do that, get used to it, we don't have to do that anymore because it just happens. If a contrary thought comes up, the subconscious tendency will be to substitute the good thought for the dangerous or useful thought which is against the plan or against human welfare, you know. So we bind time that way, and we save a lot of time. The initiate saves a lot of time by building a good habit pattern. Okay, anything else, folks, before we get into our meditation? So let's do that then. Let's get into our meditation. And just want to make sure I'm in the right place doing the right thing, you know? So what's the glamour we're dealing with today? Well, as I said, you know, we're going to more and more, we're going to deal with these issues. Wait a second, let me, yeah. We're going to deal with these issues that are depriving people of their natural human rights and the sort of the dangerous beliefs about that. You know, we tend under the fifth ray, which is responsible for the law of cleavages, to believe that we're better than other people. Or let's say the white race is better than the Black group or the Hispanic group or the Oriental group. Look at the Orientals now being attacked in the United States. A recent, the last word isn't out on that, but a man walks into 3 parlors and he kills 8 people. Has he killed them because they are Oriental? Is he faking it and saying he has some kind of sexual addiction and all that? A little history about that guy. When he was in school, he used to walk around carrying his Bible so that everybody noticed that he was carrying his Bible. Well, you know the ray that does that. The fanatical 6th ray, when it is being fanatical. So, those things, they will wane, but how much destruction will they cause before they go out of incarnation for the coming cycle? That's where we have to be really, really careful. So the glamour we're going to work with is, it's kind of a first ray glamour where, you just love your own power. The love of power to the extent of negating or stealing the will, or let's say, or power of others. I want my power and you can't have your power. And that's really selfish. And it's happening all the time. Last night, someone was with us and said that I'm sure it's worse in some states than in others, but she said that in 43 states where the battle for democracy is being fought in the US, why are we focusing so much on the US? Because the battle for the rights of others, for democracy, is being fought out in the United States, says the Tibetan. 43 states are introducing voter suppression legislation, which is simply theft, disenfranchisement, stealing your will, stealing the votes of the Black people, of the brown people, of the Oriental people, and of, the opposite party that tends to be more rational at this time. Those who represent the second-ray soul of the nation and not the fanatical Martian sixth ray of the nation. So it's happening right now, just as the Tibetan predicted. The battle for democracy is being fought out and will be, the consequences will be spreading all over the world, depending. So we know what we're doing in this meditation, and let's just get into it. We're not going to name all the group members right now, but we know we are working together, and in the silence, we allow ourselves to come together. And I do see that I missed some hands, and I'll try to remember to take that up right after we finish the meditation. So in the silence, we get the sense of really being together, working together, and being one unifying group. Working in the realm of Kama Manas, focusing on the astral plane, but also on that part of the mind that descends into the astral plane and makes things worse. And we'll use our protective formula: forehead, heart, left eye, right eye, tracing light as we go. When we use the formula, knowing wisely that in this realm of greatest veiling or illusion, we need the protection. As a soul, I work in light. And darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light. I work, and from that point, I never move. And before each one of us is this cross of divinity, and then before the entire group, protecting the entire group. And then, well, because, you know, those forces on the astral plane, and they don't want any individual or group to be interfering with their plans to obstruct the plan. So they will fight back, and that's why we use the protection. So we focus the dual light of matter, the vital light, and the light of mind. We bring them together. So the mental light is supported by the vital light of matter. And we also reach into the light of the soul, however we want to come en rapport with it. The soul is light in a way. And we bring that light of the soul imaginatively down onto the normal mental plane where we think and reason, and we blend the three lights. The light of the soul, the light of mind, and the vital light of matter. You get the sense of blending the three lights. So we have the mind held steady in the light of the soul and supported by the vital light of matter, which, as we have been discussing, is simply a form of energy. And then we say, with regard to our blended lights, the light is one. And in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. Oh. 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 And we do remember that the scorpionic light, which controls the plane of intuition, is called the light of day. So a lesser light reveals a greater light, and thus it ever is. And then we use a formula with our creative imagination simultaneously. And we think of who we are in the context of this meditation. Radiance are we, and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth. The inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus, with the light we work, and turn the darkness into day. And as we're saying these words, thinking these words, we're generating through visualization the great searchlight that we can create or have created from the three lights, and we project it on the astral plane. We come en rapport with the astral plane and project our beam into the astral. Into the swirl of negation on the astral plane. It is the solar plexus, after all, that puts us on rapport. And every one of the workers in the glamour group had a significant presence of the sixth ray, and thus could come en rapport with that plane, but it is the beam which does the work, dissipating the clouds, the miasmas, the veils, the mantles, the fogs, It's our beam that does the work. And then we even strengthen that beam. With power upon its beam, the light is focused on the goal. And this is the goal, the dissipation of, the weakening of this, I want to call it selfish love of power, to the extent of stealing or negating the will or power of others. Who cares about them? I care about myself. We think about humanity and what this glamour down the ages has done to block humanity's way to a better life. This selfish love of power. Raw ambition. Selfish love of power to the extent of stealing or negating the will or power of others. That's what we'll be working with. And realizing that in the year ahead and the months ahead, it's just going to get worse as the selfish groups attempt to retake the levers of government, affecting not only the place where the battle for democracy is occurring, but every place where the dictators are waiting to grab more power from the benighted people, and even from those who are not benighted, a power grab. And so we use the words of power. The power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of, this is what we're calling it, the glamour of the selfish love of power, to the extent of stealing or negating the will or power of others. It shall not appear. It shall not appear. It shall not appear. And the disenfranchisement, the attempts to bring this almost ultimate form of disrespect into action, namely disenfranchisement of the rights of others, it will cease. The power of our united light negates the quality of this glamour from affecting humanity. The power of our united light destroys the life behind this glamour. No life, no vitality remains for the selfish love of power to the extent of stealing or negating the will or power of others. Devitalization of this glamour. And in the silence that follows, 5 minutes of silence, we will see our beam, our light, our reinforced light that is empowered, penetrating into the glamour and producing its weakening and its dissipation. 5 minutes of silence to work in your own way, but with the group, on this weakening of the glamour. just want to say that this is a perfect place to use the Raja Yoga method of substituting the good thought for the contrary thought. And as the days and weeks and months go by, we and I will figure out some kind of visual schedule which attempts to protect the rights, the power, the will of all voters, and really of everybody, against the enslavement of those who want their own power, who love their own power, regardless of what it may mean for others. So we withdraw our beam back onto the mental plane and redistribute the lights, turning the searchlight of the soul off for the moment, reapportioning the lights, but intent to work for the rights of people. So that they can surround and overcome the selfish ones who just want privilege and prerogatives, mostly materialistic, for themselves. And now we close with sounding the Om 3 times. One for each vehicle, and knowing that some little bit of good work has been done, not only with respect to the astral vehicle, but also affecting the place where illusion is generated, the mind, and the place where chaos seems to reign supreme, the etheric physical plane. We sound the Om 3 times. And we believe some good work has been done. Tonight, 6 p.m. GMT, Zoom, going on with Cosmic Fire in depth, and then at 8 o'clock, for those who are members of the Esoteric United Nations, we'll have a continuing meeting. And if you feel you would like to join that group with its commitment until the year 2026, when the new group of world servers has its festival again, then please write to Tuya and me, and we'll make sure that you have the link and you can decide, but everybody that's in that group has to make their pledge and commit to the ongoing work. Thank you for being here with us, and thank you for meditating with us on these important corrective processes. We have to have faith in the esoteric methods. They do work, and we can get better and better at them and provide an esoteric core to the new group of world servers. Many people in that group will not involve themselves in esotericism. They simply love their fellow human beings, and they're doing the best they can for them, and that is the most important. But the esoteric core also is important. So lots of love and many blessings from all of us on the communications group. And we'll see at least some of you for Cosmic Fire, which will be a Zoom program. And it's on the weekly list that Ann and Tuya put together. And then the Esoteric United Nations write to us, and we'll make sure that you can get into that process if you want to be in that process and are willing to make your commitment to that process. This will be up as soon as we can get it up, and let people know that if they missed it, they can pick it up on Makara or on YouTube. We'll be talking to you. And bye for now.